Okay, hello. Now this is going to be a tough one. I'm going to try and have a look at PPG Infinite today. PPG Infinite is a deep app with lots going on. I'm probably not going to cover even a tenth of what's going on here. I barely scratched the surface, but I'm going to give it a go. I've been thinking about doing this for ages, and every time I start to do a video, I go, "Oh, I'm never going to get it all in." This may end up being a multi-volume thing. I don't know. Okay, so PPG Infinite. It's an amazing sounding thing. Now, that's not to say it doesn't sound similar to Wolfgang Palm's other apps, Wave Mapper and Wave Generator. It does, but it's got more. And I think it's more accessible than Wave Generator, and probably you can control it better than Wave Mapper. So it's a good app, but it's not necessarily the most intuitive. Now, I actually had to go around and read the manual for this one, which I don't do ever, but I did in this case because I was just hit a few walls. I just couldn't figure out what was going on, and what I have figured out is that really quite often it's because Wolfgang, bless his heart, has a tendency to use different naming conventions to the rest of the synthesizer world. So something that may seem completely opaque actually turns out in the rest of the world has a name that makes sense. So let's have a look. So this is the main page. This is the Morpher page, and what we have here is we have basically a wavetable, and we've got a thing that a filter thing that modifies that, and we've got a noise thing. Now the wavetable bit is on the face of it quite straightforward. So we have a wavetable that we can choose in the middle, and if I just click edit here, you'll see we've also got another 4 different wavetables which I can click and edit those as well. So let's pick a different one for there, let's pick a different one for over here, pick one for over there. Okay, so now I've basically changed the one in the middle. And so I've changed all 4 of the 5. Now what happens then, now this isn't quite vector synthesis. I thought it was. I thought it was like all those other synths where you're basically morphing between a bunch of different tables. It's not quite. Let's have a look. In the XY direction, you're morphing between the gains of the partials, basically the sine waves that make up the wavetables, and in the Y direction, it's the frequencies of the wavetables that you're morphing between. I don't think that's very clear at the moment. Hopefully, when I dig into the wavetable stuff, it'll become clearer. Now, over here, the thing about these wavetables are that these can be imported from other places. So if I go into, if I was in Wave Mapper or in Wave Generator, so let's bring up Wave Mapper, for instance, and if I was in the mapping thing and I was to select one of these thingies here and went to this drop down box, I can import this wavetable into Infinite, and it should be there now. Cool, that worked. Okay, I can also do the same thing with Wave Generator. So if I go into Wave Generator and I'm in this wave bit here, I can also take that and I can export that into Infinite. So now I've got that one there, apparently. So, all good. So this is wavetables, and you can import it from the other apps. Now the middle bit, Molder, that is a filter over time. So effectively, it's like somebody turning the knob on some kind of filter. Now you can drop these down from here. So I've got these built-in ones, and you can apply that positively or negatively. So if I put it right up the top here, so wow, wow, wow. If I can do it negative, slightly different. Now these things here, these can be imported from Phonem. phoneme, because basically what phoneme is doing is applying filters over time to make sounds, to make formant filters, to make vowels and stuff. So I can go in and I can take one of those, and I can also take that into infinite also. So now I've got that noise. I can apply that over here. So we've got wavetables we can import. We've got time variant filters, I think he calls them, that we can import from phoneme. And there's also, for each of those, there's envelopes that control all this lot. Over on the noise side, we've basically got noises which are, you have got pink noise, white noise, basic noises, but a lot of these are noises that have been imported or analysed from other sounds. So I've got a fricative here, and I can apply that. If I take it, turn it right over to the noise side, that is apparently a fricative. And that's over there is the sound of the saw. Somewhere in the middle, I've got noise and saw. Okay, so that's the basic three chunks. Not quite so simple, because you've also got, for all of these things, you've got envelopes and LFOs all happening over on this page, and you've also got up the top here, which I thought was just an explanation, but actually you can touch this stuff. I think it probably should have a button there, maybe. You've got different paths through the signal. So different signal paths. So here I've got main oscillator, sub oscillator going into the time variant filter, going into the balance, going to the crush, into the VCF, main gain, blah blah blah, amp basically, filter and amp. And at the bottom I've got noiser going through time variant filter, through a noise gain, and then for joining in. But if I look here, you've got pan 1, 2 and 3. Why they're called pan, no idea, because they're all just different routes or routes, as I'm supposed to say here in Australia, through the signal path. And you can see that this changes at the top. So they completely change the sound as well. So you can actually build in quite a lot of variants just by messing around with which one of those you choose. Okay, so now we've already figured out lots of different ways to take one sound or a couple of sounds from this app or from other apps, and then you can mess around with them. So now we've done that, let's have a look at the wavy bit, because this is where things get really interesting in my opinion. We've got these three menus, and they confused the hell out of me when we first started here, when I first started looking at this, because sign 1, sign 2 sort of indicates that you're looking at some kind of different thing. They're not. They're just, these four are all different views of your wave. All right, your central chosen wave here, the spectrum as they're calling it. So sign 1 is a sort of coarse view, and this is my wavetable. And as you can see, this wavetable is made up of a bunch of partials. So this is where stuff gets very similar to additive synthesis, because what I've got is a bunch of partials, and they're changing their volume effectively over time. So if I turn on trace so you can see what's going on and press the button, not a lot there, I mean. Okay, I just changed the sounds here to a different preset because I wanted to demonstrate the stuff going on these sign buttons a bit better. So if I go to sign 1 here, this is the coarse view, if you like, of the wavetable. So this, each one of these rows here, P1, P2, P3, and so on. If I turn trace off so I can show you, P1, P2, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You see the number going up here, and each one of these is a partial. So these are basically all the harmonics. That's first harmonic, P2 is second harmonic. So if you think of this as additive synthesis, these are all your partials going up. But what we've got here going across is them changing, effectively changing volume over time. So if I turn trace on and then press, okay, so now we have a wavetable. But the wavetable is made up of partials that are changing volume over time. So if I change one of these partials, let's turn trace off. This one here, my fundamental, I can change the frequency of that. I can change the gain. Now, this is interesting. Frequency, I'm actually changing the pitch of that fundamental. which is something you can't normally do in Wavetables. This is one of the important things about this app, is that rather than have in additive synthesis or wavetable synthesis, all the partials are normally fixed in frequency, but here you can change any of them, which is unusual. But it means that you can create sounds that you'd never normally be able to create. If I take, say, the third partial here, and I change the frequency completely and make it a bit louder, I'm now getting some atonal stuff building in, which means that you can get interesting sounds that you wouldn't normally get. I can make that decay a bit faster, and I can, what do I create? Frequency and the phase. And let's do the same to, say, partial 6. I'm going to change the frequency of that, make it a bit louder. There, so now you can hear I'm getting some atonal qualities building up in here. Now I can do that with all of this. Now this is a 200 frame wavetable here. I haven't figured out how to change the frame rate, and for the life of me, I can't find anything in the manual about it. So we'll just have to deal with this for now. Okay, so that's like the coarse view. If I come out and go to the second view, sign 2, this means I can actually change each of the partials. See that? 1, 2, 3 humps. That's this partial. And if I take scoops out of that, now I've changed that, and this is, of course, this is going across time. So this is the volume over time. So let's take the fundamental, build in a bit of a wobble on that one, and let's take the second, third then, and put something in there. Okay. You may not hear that. You can also change edit all others. So I'm going to change all the others to something a bit weirdy. Okay. And then I'm going to change that back to single, and let's make this one a bit louder and that one a bit louder. So what I'm doing here is additive synthesis, but with a time element. Cool, huh? I didn't say it was going to sound nice though. Now, on this page, obviously you've got the fine editing of the partials, but you've also got the fine editing of the frequencies. So if I click the frequency button there, see that one I've got highlighted in white. Let's make it wobble there in the middle. There we go. So now that's changing the frequency. So that's actually going wobbling up and down in pitch, as well as wobbling up and down in volume. So if I now pick on one of the others, that one, I can make that wobble up and down in pitch as well, make it a bit more extreme. So now you can hear I've got this warbling going on in some of the higher harmonics. If I turn on sig-inf, which in the manual says it actually says sig-inf, but it's not, it's sig-inf. On some of them it'll just remove all the insignificant partials from the view, so that you can just concentrate on the significant ones. But obviously they're all looking like they're pretty significant here. All right, so that's the fine tuning, side 2. In random, I can now add some randomization to this. So what I'm going to do is I can say I'm going to add a little bit of randomization to frequency, a little bit of randomization to the decay, and a bit to the mod frequency and phase, and then click go, bang, and there you go. It's randomized them now according to what I've set here. And obviously I could turn the whole lot up here and just click go and make random wavetables all day. So you can mess around with that as much as you like. Turning trace on again shows me the path through, but you can't do any kind of editing when you're in trace mode. And then if I go back to anim, this really is just fancy. So if you're sitting next to somebody attractive on the bus and you want to show off how cool you are, you can have this animation whizzing around, and then they'll think you're doing something really clever. Okay. So that's the wave section. Now going over to the all of these things here all have envelopes. And if I click that envelope there, time envelope is the default envelope for the spectrum. And here we are, is the time envelope. As you can see, I'm going forward. Now, this starts at the bottom here is one end of the wavetable. The top is the other end of the wavetable. So I'm going from one end of the wavetable right to the end very quickly. Then I'm coming back, and then I'm kind of wobbling around a bit. So I can just change that to something a bit different. Let's have this one come. Let's have it like that. Okay. So now I'm going quickly to the end of the wavetable, and I'm kind of creeping back slowly. And I'm going to come back to a point that isn't all the way through the wavetable. So if I now go back over to here and show you the trace on, quickly across, and now I'm slowly creeping back. And at some point it's going to stop and wait for me to finish, because that's what the envelope's doing. There we are. So now it's stopped, and now it goes back to the end. So time envelope all makes sense. You've also got a bunch of other envelopes that you can use there instead. Some things have envelopes allocated to them automatically. So low pass here, this one, that's TVF time filter, the time variant filter. I've got LFOs here as well, so I've got 4 LFOs that you can mess around with the frequency and the, there we go. They're all very jagged. There don't seem to be any smooth signs in the LFOs. They all seem to be saw waves or triangle waves, but maybe I'm wrong, I just haven't found them yet. Then we've got the oscillator section, which is obviously the wave I've got here. We've got a sub oscillator and well, we've got 2 oscillators. It basically splits into 2 oscillators, and I can set these to different octaves or different tunings, and I can mess around with intensity and speed. I've got some bit crush going on here, and I've got a global filter that isn't a time variant filter. It's just a filter. Although I'm fairly sure I can time vary it through the mod matrix here. And I've got the output volume. And then I've got an effects section, which I'm not going to go into because it's an effects section, isn't it? Now this bit here bugs the living cack out of me. It's a good matrix. I mean, it's got lots of stuff in it. But I have 2 complaints. One, it's little. So that's why I'm going to use this thing. So if you go through here, it tells you at the top what each column you're in, and most of these columns have 2 variants. So I've got gains merge fine and gains merge coarse, or noise mod 1, noise mod 2. Again, with the terminology, Wolfgang, gains mod fine, gains mod and frequency mod, they're the 2 X and Y's on here, and I think it would help if it was X and Y on the morpher, or morpher X, morpher Y. It's a small thing, but I had to look it up in the manual to find out which one of these things was modifying those bits, and so that irritated me because I hate looking at the manual. So the other slightly quirky thing about this is you choose your column first. So if I want to mess around with the gains merge coarse, and I want it to be affected by LFO1, now I've got that coarse that highlighted. Now I'm going to select LFO2, LFO1. Sorry, there we are, and now. That should now be messing around here, but I don't know if I'm going to see it in trace. Anyway, there we are. That's what it's doing. And you can set all sorts of stuff in here, but I think it's a bit fiddly. It'd be nice if you could click on it and go bring it up to full screen so that you could work with it with big fat fingers. But that's just a niggle. All right, so I think that's as much as I want to do today. This is an astonishing app. I spend a lot of time messing around with it, just messing around with the wavetables and sort of just changing stuff because it's quite compulsive. Let's just have the gains up on that one. Oh, that's cool. See now that partial is just increasing in volume while everything else is decreasing. Giving me a weird sound. Anyway, sorry. It's very compelling. It's actually quite attractive. I think I like the way it's laid out, except for the mod matrix. It's got a lot of presets in it, and if you go to one of Doug's videos, I'm fairly sure Doug's done a big sound test where he's gone through a lot of these. You can hear the sounds in a number of places, so I'm not going to go through those particularly. But I think this is a great app. I like the way it incorporates in the stuff from Wave Mapper and from Wave Generator and from Phonem. So it's kind of it's your central PPG app now, and it's not cheap, and it's very deep, and it sounds probably aren't for everyone. But if this sort of wavetable partials, additive synthesis sort of thing is your bag, baby, then I think you might like it. Anyway, that's me. Bye.